Good in the middle. Body. Of all the meditation subjects that the Buddha recommended, body contemplation is probably the most unpopular with Western practitioners. Although body contemplation is very worthwhile, for some strange reason it's not encouraged much in the West. Very few teachers even mention it. Why is that? They must not realize how valuable it is. Contemplation of the body is an essential component of the Buddha's teaching. This may seem strange in an age when people know all about the world, but know very little about themselves. They've studied science, so when you ask them the reason for doing this or that, or how something works, they can go into great detail. Even if they themselves don't know, they can easily find out by asking someone who does know, or by looking it up in books or online. But when it comes to the human body, what do they know? Even if they know physiology, in the medical sense, all they've done is study someone else's body or pictures of the human body in a textbook, not their own body. But surely our bodies are extremely important. If we didn't have a human body, how would we experience the world? The human body allows us to access the world around us. It is our outlet into the world, so to speak. Surely knowledge about the body's true nature is essential to our well-being. In order to comprehend its nature, we should ask ourselves, what actually is the human body? What's it composed of? Is it a pleasant thing or not? We can put aside our preconceived ideas about it and just ask objectively, is the human body attractive or not? Most people in the world seem to think that the body is very attractive, that it's a most desirable thing. Let's have a look. What happens if we don't wash it for a few days? We've got to keep washing the thing, otherwise it stinks before long and becomes unbearable. Let a few strands of hair fall into a plate of food, and we quickly lose our appetite. Why? Head hair and body hair are inherently filthy, which is the reason that we have to continuously wash them. In fact, nothing that comes in contact with any part of the human body remains clean for long. Due to the dirt and the smell that accumulate on our bodies, our clothing and bed linen must be constantly laundered. Even the food we eat, once it's ground between the teeth and mixed with saliva, becomes filthy as well. There are many such aspects of the body that we must look at to determine whether it's a pleasant thing or not, whether it's beautiful or not. You should be determined to search for the truth of the matter. After all, most people think that they are their bodies. If that is the case, surely you should want to know more about yourself. When you are so interested to know everything about the world, why do you leave out the one thing that is the most important of all, yourself? Why not try to get to know yourself? The first step in trying to get to know yourself is to question the nature of the body, because the body is the grossest part of who you are or who you think you are. However, as you probe more deeply into body contemplation, you begin to realize that the body, in fact, is not you. It comes from the world, and it returns to the world. It's simply a part of this earth. It consists entirely of atomic structures, atoms, molecules, chemicals, and so on. And it's nothing apart from these things. It doesn't go beyond the state of physical matter. When you look at it properly, you can see that it isn't really you. It doesn't belong to you. You can't even control its destiny. The body at birth is derived from the world. At death, it returns to the world. There's no way to stop it from rejoining the earth as organic matter. When you cling tightly to the body, it's almost as if you are confining yourself to a prison cell. The human body resembles a prison because it restricts you to certain conditions from which you cannot free yourself. So you must understand the body's true nature in order to realize that the physical body is not what you really are, and that clinging to it creates undesirable consequences. Search to find the truth of the matter. After all, why not examine the body? It's such an obvious thing to look at. When you do, you begin to see that your whole outlook on the world depends on the body. Consider any aspect of life and you'll find that nearly every one of them is related to the human body. Houses are built according to the needs of the human body. Cars and towns are based on the shape and size of the human body. All the things you use are designed to accommodate bodily dimensions. Because human beings are attached to their bodies, they have to put up with the vicissitudes of bodily existence, most of which are quite unpleasant. The body has its own momentum, which you can't control. It gets sick, and you can't prevent it. It grows old, and you can't prevent that. Eventually, in its own time, the body dies, and you can't prevent that either. The body belongs to the earth. It originates from earthly substances and then returns to the earth as physical matter. In fact, the body can only live in a physical environment that is suited to bodily existence. The body requires earth to stand on, air to breathe, water to drink, food to eat, energy and heat to function, and so on. All these things come from the earth. Because of that, this body is just a part of the earth beneath our feet. But nonetheless, we insist on grasping at it and claiming ownership of it. Once we own it, we also own all the difficulties that come along with bodily existence, which we find we don't like. We don't like being sick. We don't like growing old. We don't like dying. The body is something that we are familiar enough with that we can imagine parts of it in our mind and keep our attention on the images, contemplating them to see their attributes, their associations, and their cause and effect relationships. Because we already know so much about the body, it's a very good subject for meditation. Body contemplation can go in two basic directions. One is the way of samatha, using calm and concentration as a basis. The other is the way of vipassana, using insight and wisdom as a basis. To practice the way of samatha, you keep your attention fixed on one aspect of the body, like the skin, without thinking much about it. Just keep skin fixed in your mind as much as you can. One advantage of using this method is that the mind becomes calm and focused. And because the focus of your attention has been concentrated on a part of the body, it's easy to later turn and investigate that body part to develop a deeper understanding of its true nature. The Vipassana way of practicing body contemplation begins by questioning the body's nature. What is the nature of skin? Where does skin come from? What is it composed of? What happens if I don't wash it? Suppose I cut off a piece. What lies underneath it? What internal organs is the skin covering up, and what are they like? Consider all aspects of the parts that make up the human body. This is the way of developing wisdom, always questioning, searching to discover what's really there. To begin with, take the body as the body. That is, take it in the same way you normally experience your body. You are not attempting to superimpose a radically new view on the body. Rather, you want to go more deeply into what is right there in front of you and expose some obvious truths about it. You are trying to see your body in what might be called the light of truth, trying to see what bodily existence means in such a deep and profound way that you realize the body is not you. It is not yours. This is the important point. Later on, you can begin to examine the body as a mental image. At the beginning stage of body contemplation, however, you must look at the body in the way you normally do. Otherwise, the investigation becomes too nebulous, and the practice doesn't progress properly. The first aim of the practice is to see for yourself the body's inherently repulsive nature, repulsive in the sense that it doesn't reflect the pleasing image you have of yourself. This discovery counters the normal view that the body is an attractive and desirable part of who you are, a part that deserves your constant attention. On the other hand, you also understand that the body is a necessary and valuable instrument, because without it, you do not have a physical basis for your mental faculties. Without a physical body, you would not have access to the faculties of thinking and recollection. There would be just bare knowing, and that's all. Therefore, you must have a physical body to function. So, although the body is seen as undesirable, you are also aware of its necessity. As long as you maintain that balanced view of the body in your practice, you can avoid negative states like alienation and aversion. Although it's up to each individual to decide the best method to use for body contemplation, starting with hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin usually provides a very good basis. If you feel you would rather investigate the body as arms, legs, head, organs, and so on, that's quite a legitimate practice too. Reflect on how the human body is merely a combination of various parts. It is not a completely homogeneous entity at all. Apart from the head, most bodily parts can be cut off and the body will continue to function. An enormous amount can be removed from the body without death occurring. From that, you can reflect, if I refer to this as my body, what about this arm? Is it mine? If it's cut off, is it still mine? In whichever case, you begin body contemplation by focusing on the parts that make up the body: head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, bones, and so on. You can either mentally visualize each one or focus your attention on the location in the body of each part, whichever you prefer. This exercise is the training for wisdom, not the wisdom itself. As you keep practicing in this manner, probing and questioning continuously over a long time, you will suddenly see one of the body parts from a totally different angle. It's as though you see the full implications of it in relation to the realms of mind and matter. Take skin, for example. You know its characteristics and its basic functions. Skin is a thin layer of surface tissue that is necessary to protect the internal organs from outside exposure, helping maintain the life of the body. You are aware of all that, but what are the implications of skin as far as your notions of self are concerned? This is what the training for wisdom is trying to uncover. In the end, you realize that skin is just part of nature. It comes from nature and it goes back to nature. It isn't you. There is nothing of you in it. How could it be you? That skin you cling to as an integral part of your self-identity is merely a perishable physical substance. When you see these implications clearly, it feels almost as though you are giving up a cherished part of yourself. Seeing the truth of the matter and letting go of the attachment is the work of wisdom. It means knowing directly that the skin is not self, not merely speculating about it. Skin cannot be self. It has no connection to self. That is one method used to overcome attachment to the body. Without developing your faculty of wisdom, you are unaware of how much attachment you feel for it. You don't realize how much your self-identity is bound up with the body. For your own physical and mental welfare, it's very important to overcome that attachment. Another effective method for overcoming bodily attachment is the asubha contemplation. The asubha contemplation entails focusing on the human body's inherently impure and loathsome nature. Much of our discontentment stems from clinging to the body as the basis of who we are. It is a central feature of our personal identity. Because of this deep-seated notion, we project a definite sense of self into all our actions. We deliberately plan our whole lives around desires related to the body. When we comprehend the body's impure nature, we can experience it as inherently unstable, impermanent, and repulsive. In that way, we can reduce the craving built up around the body until eventually we are able to free ourselves from the strong sense of self associated with it. Because the skin so easily fools us with its deceptive appearance, it deserves a very careful examination. This thin layer of tissue covers the flesh and internal organs of the body. Although at a glance it may appear clean and attractive, closer inspection shows a scaly, wrinkled layer that exudes sweat and grease. Only constant washing and cleaning make it bearable to live with. After thoroughly investigating that outer layer, mentally strip off the skin and investigate the internal organs, following whatever method best suits your natural temperament. As you contemplate the body, certain parts or characteristics should begin to stand out and catch your attention. You should focus specifically on those parts that interest you. When you investigate deeply into just one body part until seeing its true nature clearly with wisdom, you will be able to extend that understanding to include the entire body. Because all bodily substance has the same nature, it's filthy, disgusting, and repulsive through and through. No desirable and satisfactory personal identity can be found there. But you must understand very clearly that the objective of this contemplation is not to stir up aversion for the body. That would be wrong. You only want to recognize its loathsome nature. It's rather like opening your refrigerator and seeing a rotten piece of meat that has been there the last 5 weeks. You'd feel it was repulsive, but you wouldn't feel hatred for it. You'd just take it out and drop it in the garbage. That's all. Likewise, with the body, it isn't hatred you want to evoke. That's wrong. You want the experience of revulsion, a feeling of dismay that you've grasped this body at birth, that you're tightly bound to this body now, and that you must live with it until it dies. Even so, as long as you remain with the body, you still have an opportunity to practice meditation to see the Dhamma. In that sense, it's quite valuable. But you must use it in the right way in order to overcome your delusion. This is the true purpose of body contemplation. After you have practiced Asubha contemplations intensively, you may feel irritable or even angry for no apparent reason. This is a reaction to the body contemplation itself. When your deeply ingrained views of physical identity are probed and questioned, the internal forces of delusion fight back with feelings of irritation or annoyance. You may feel like a bear with a sore on its head, as they say. To quell those negative emotions, you should combine body contemplation with another practice, like mindfulness of breathing or loving kindness, to calm the mind down. These techniques are consistent with what the Buddha taught. He said that when one does body practice, one should do breath meditation as well. The body is an interesting object to investigate because you can analyze the body in many different ways. Another way is to investigate the body in terms of the physical elements of earth, water, fire, and air. The natural world around us appears to be very real and solid, but it appears that way only because our bodies are also composed of the same material elements. Fundamentally, there is no difference between the makeup of the human body and the makeup of the physical world. In modern terms, they both consist of atoms and molecules. It will benefit your practice to look at the body from that angle and reflect on it. You should also investigate the body from the viewpoint that the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air are actually abstract or symbolic interpretations of physical matter. In examining matter, scientists have never found an earth element, nor have they found air, water, or fire elements. They do not exist as concrete physical properties. In fact, contemplation of the 4 physical elements is a psychological method of analyzing matter. And mind is the main requirement for making the analysis, meaning that you contemplate those characteristics subjectively. The mind uses concepts about earth, water, fire, and air to represent material qualities such as solidity, fluidity, heat, and motion, so as to understand the body on a more subtle level. Another interesting approach to body contemplation is to ask, how is the body known? How is it experienced? The answer is that we know the body through feeling. It's bodily feeling that informs us about our bodies. It's actually difficult to experience the body in any other way. Of course, we can analyze the body in terms of its constituent parts and so on. These are aspects of the body we are familiar with because we can see them. But from the perspective of an internal experience, however, we really know the body through feelings and sensations. Because of that, the body we experience is a feeling body. That feeling body is a subtle energy body that mirrors our physical form. Our minds contact the physical body through that spiritual projection, so we never actually know the physical body directly. For this reason, when we investigate our bodies in meditation, we must pay attention to bodily sensations to guide the way. The internal makeup of the physical body is known only by means of conceptual images that come from seeing pictures depicting what the various parts look like. All those internal parts combine to make up the physical body, but that is not the way we experience the body internally. When we contemplate the body by examining those bits and pieces that comprise it, we are working with a mental picture of the body. When we contemplate the corresponding feeling body, we may find that the sensations paint quite a different picture of the body, and quite a different understanding of what makes up the body as well. That's why it's important to realize that feeling is the most important aspect of our knowledge of the body. For example, when you feel a pain in your foot, the source of the pain appears to be located in the foot. In actual fact, sensory impulses are transmitted from the foot to some mechanism in the brain, which then projects the experience of pain onto the image of the foot located in the feeling body. In other words, the experience of pain takes place in the mind's image of the body, which is mentally superimposed on the physical form. We feel the painful sensation in the foot only because our instincts tell us it must be there. In the same manner, the whole body is mirrored in an extensive network of sensations. For that reason, the feeling body is very important. It is the one we know. It is the source of our perceptions of physical existence. In the same manner, the whole body is mirrored in an extensive network of sensations. For that reason, the feeling body is very important. It is the one we know. It is the source of our perceptions of physical existence. If the above method of investigating the body works, then use it. By analyzing the body in this way, we are seeking to see this body for what it is, and thus drop our attachment to it. In doing so, we realize that our physical body is not really essential to who we are. It's just a conglomeration of material substances that will one day be absorbed back into the physical universe. The question then is, why do we grasp at it? People grasp at physical existence because they imagine that the human body is a secure refuge, which it isn't. It is always subject to the uncertainty of disease, old age, and death. At the same time, the body is a very sensitive organism. Its life relies upon a suitable environment, which means it must have air to breathe, temperatures that are reasonable for human life, and protection from dangers in its environment. All these factors are necessary. If they are not available, or if they change, the body will perish. Because all physical bodies are inherently vulnerable, we should be looking for security in other ways instead. When we realize that the body does not offer us the security we desire, we should examine the reasons for that insecurity to see if there isn't a better way to find a secure refuge than grasping at the human body. When people identify with their bodies, they become concerned about them. Because the body forms the basis of their lives as human beings, They're afraid of losing that base. The body acts like a home they can come back to. When their minds go whizzing off somewhere, they can always return to home base. It anchors them, so they feel more safe and secure. If the base was no longer there, where could they come back to? There'd be nowhere to return. When people feel they are drifting, they need to find a foothold, an anchor to hold them steady. Because every part of the body is constantly changing, it is not reliable enough to provide such a secure refuge. Our personal stake in bodily existence puts us under its unstable influence. Whatever happens to the body is then experienced as something that happens to us. When it falls sick, we become worried and depressed. If the body gets injured, we feel distraught. We're distraught because of our attachment to the body, believing it to be an integral part of who we are. When it dies, we find ourselves suddenly homeless. Because of our attachment, whatever happens to it happens to us. Once we realize what the body's true nature is, we are freed from our attachment to it. Then what happens to the body is experienced as something that happens separately and externally. It seems as though somebody else's body is injured or sick. When pain is experienced in the body, there is no concern about the pain because it isn't me, it isn't mine. Being neither me nor mine, pain never again has the same sway over our emotions. It no longer pulls us along with it. The mind remains separate and free. Being separate and free, it also feels secure. We know that delusion has been at least partially eliminated. We know that whatever happens, we won't go in the wrong way. We won't fall back. This is the kind of result we are working towards in body contemplation. The purpose of body contemplation is the realization that the body is not you, nor does it belong to you. The body belongs to the natural world. You have grasped the body at birth, and continue to cling to it by maintaining it in good condition. But the time will come when that body must return to the world of atoms and molecules. When you truly realize within yourself that the body is just a temporary home, something you have on loan, as it were, then concerns for the body drop away. Fear of death also drops away because you realize that death is merely the breakup of the physical form. This understanding does not cause alienation from physical existence. Rather, it is clear comprehension of the truth about its natural state. Many different forms of body contemplation exist, but regardless of which method you use, the basic purpose of this meditation practice is to learn to see the human body in the light of Dhamma, and thus understand its true nature. This is the crux of the matter. By seeing it for what it is, you realize that the body shouldn't be associated with your self-identity. That fundamental realization transforms your whole perspective on who you are. Having realized that the body is not self, you simply let it go its own way. Eventually, you see that all physical forms are just shadows, like images flickering on a cinema screen. The knowledge you gain from seeing that truth is very powerful. When the body eventually dies, you know that it's not you that's dying. By bringing your mind to this realization, body contemplation gives it a great deal of spiritual and emotional strength and relieves it of an enormous burden, both now and in the future.